My coworker kept stealing my clothes. She didn't know I was her new boss. I was staring at my computer screen, trying to focus on quarterly reports, when Jessica walked past my cubicle wearing my $180 cashmere sweater. The burgundy one I'd bought myself for my birthday 3 months ago. The one that had mysteriously vanished from my desk drawer 2 weeks after I'd worn it to the office Christmas party. My hands clenched into fists as she strutted by, completely oblivious to my presence, chatting loudly with Maria from accounting about her amazing thrift store find. Thrift store. Right. I wanted to march over there and rip it off her body, but I forced myself to take deep breaths instead. Just like I had when she wore my pearl earrings to the company picnic. Just like when she carried my leather purse to 3 different meetings last month, claiming her aunt had given it to her. Jessica Martinelli had been stealing from me for 8 months, and I'd felt completely helpless to stop it. HR had been useless when I tried to report it back in February. Do you have concrete proof? They'd asked. Maybe you just have similar taste, they'd suggested. Are you sure you didn't misplace these items? Because apparently, having a good memory about my own belongings was suspicious. The worst part wasn't even the money, though she'd stolen nearly $800 worth of my stuff by my careful calculations. It was the humiliation. Watching her parade around in my clothes while I sat there powerless, knowing that half the office had seen me wear these exact same pieces before they magically appeared in Jessica's wardrobe. Some people had to have noticed, but nobody said anything. The burgundy sweater was particularly distinctive. It had a unique cable knit pattern across the front that you didn't see everywhere. I'd started keeping my personal items locked in my car, which was ridiculous. I shouldn't have to treat my workplace like a crime scene, but Jessica had this habit of wandering into people's cubicles when they stepped away. "Oh, I was just looking for you," she'd say with that innocent smile, her hands always suspiciously empty but her eyes having clearly cataloged everything on your desk. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "How's the new job treating you, honey?" I smiled for the first time all morning. Mom didn't know the half of it. Tomorrow was Monday, and Monday was when everything changed. See, while Jessica had been busy admiring herself in my stolen sweater, I'd been in back-to-back meetings with senior management all week. The promotion I'd interviewed for 6 weeks ago had finally come through. Department manager, marketing division. 40% raise, corner office, and most importantly, direct supervision over 12 employees. Including Jessica Martinelli. The irony was delicious. She had no idea. The announcement wouldn't go out until Monday morning, and I'd managed to keep it quiet. Jessica was about to discover that her favorite victim was now her boss. Her performance reviews, her schedule, her continued employment, all of that would flow through me now. I watched her laugh at something Maria said, my sweater stretching across her shoulders. She'd always been bold about her theft, but this felt particularly brazen. Wearing my most expensive piece on a Friday afternoon when the whole office was around to see it. Soon, very soon, we'd be having a conversation about workplace ethics and respect for others' property. And this time, I wouldn't need HR's permission or concrete proof. This time, I had authority. Jessica had no idea what Monday morning had in store for her. I was still watching Jessica when my phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach drop. David Chin, HR director. For a split second, paranoia flashed through me. Had someone leaked news about my promotion? Had Jessica somehow found out and was already trying to spin some story to protect herself? "Hi David, what's up?" I tried to keep my voice casual. "Hey Sarah, congratulations again on the promotion. Listen, I need to give you a heads up about something before Monday. We've got a situation brewing in your new department." My heart rate spiked. "What kind of situation?" "Well, it's about Jessica Martinelli. She filed a complaint this morning. Claims someone's been going through her personal belongings and she suspects it might be another employee in marketing." I nearly choked. "She what?" "Yeah, I know it sounds familiar given your own complaint from February. She's saying someone stole a burgundy sweater from her car yesterday, along with some jewelry. Says she has reason to believe it's targeted harassment." I stared across the office at Jessica, who was now examining her nails, my stolen sweater catching the fluorescent light. The absolute audacity was breathtaking. She wasn't just a thief, she was a manipulative thief who'd somehow figured out how to get ahead of any accusations. "David, you realize she's wearing that exact sweater right now, right? The burgundy one I described to you 8 months ago when I filed my complaint?" There was a pause. "She's wearing it now?" "Yes. The same distinctive cable knit pattern I told you about. She's been wearing my stolen clothes to work for months, and now she's claiming someone stole them from her?" My voice was rising and I forced myself to lower it. "This is unbelievable." "Okay, slow down. I need to understand this timeline. You filed your complaint in February about missing items. She filed hers this morning about items allegedly stolen yesterday. But you're saying she's currently wearing the sweater she claims was stolen?" "Exactly. David, she's been systematically taking my belongings and now she's trying to flip the script by claiming she's the victim. It's like she knows I'm about to become her supervisor and she's building a preemptive defense." But even as I said it, I realized that couldn't be true. The promotion announcement was locked down tight. Unless... David, who else knows about my new position? Just senior management and myself. The department won't be notified until Monday morning. Why? Because this timing is too convenient. She files a theft complaint the Friday before I become her boss? After 8 months of stealing from me? I could hear David typing. I'm looking at her complaint now. "Sarah, this is detailed. She's claiming harassment, creating a hostile work environment, and she specifically mentions feeling targeted by someone in a position of authority." My blood ran cold. Position of authority? But she doesn't know about my promotion. That's what's bothering me. "Look, I believe you about the sweater. I remember your complaint and you were very specific about that cable knit pattern. But Jessica's complaint reads like she knows something. She's requesting a department transfer and asking for a formal investigation." I watched Jessica gather her things, my leather purse, another stolen item, slung over her shoulder. She glanced in my direction and for just a moment, I could swear I saw something calculating in her expression before she smiled and waved. "David, I think she knows about the promotion. And I think she's trying to get transferred out of my department before Monday. That would be concerning. If she has inside information, we need to find out how." Can you document everything you remember about the missing items? We might need to accelerate the investigation timeline. Jessica disappeared around the corner, and I felt my perfect revenge scenario crumbling before it had even begun. I spent the weekend in a paranoid spiral, analyzing every conversation I'd had about the promotion. Who could have leaked it? The announcement email was scheduled to go out Monday at 9 a.m., but clearly someone had talked. By Sunday evening, I convinced myself that Jessica's preemptive strike meant she knew exactly what was coming. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood perfectly. I got to the office early, 7:30 a.m., wanting to settle into my new corner office before the chaos began. The nameplate was already installed, Sarah Mitchell, department manager. For a moment, I felt that surge of pride I'd been too stressed to enjoy over the weekend. At exactly 9 a.m., David's announcement hit everyone's inbox. I watched from my new office as people checked their phones and computers. The reactions were immediate, some surprised faces, a few congratulatory waves in my direction. But Jessica's cubicle was empty. By 9:15, I was getting concerned. Jessica was never late, she was annoyingly punctual about everything except returning stolen property. I was about to call David when my office phone rang. Sarah? It's David. We have a problem. Jessica called in sick this morning, but she also sent me an email at 6 a.m. requesting an emergency meeting about her harassment complaint. Sick? She was fine on Friday. I pulled up my computer and started typing notes. What did her email say? She's claiming the harassment has escalated over the weekend. Says someone left a threatening note on her car windshield Saturday night. She wants to meet with me and her union representative tomorrow. Union representative. My stomach dropped. David, she's escalating this beyond anything I filed. I never mentioned unions or threatening notes because there weren't any. I know. But here's the thing, she sent photos. Photos of what? A handwritten note that says, "Give back what you stole," taped to her windshield. The handwriting analysis will take time, but Sarah, she's building a case that makes you look like a stalker. I felt the room spinning slightly. I never wrote any note. I was home all weekend, my neighbor was having a barbecue Saturday night and I was there until 11 p.m. There are witnesses. Good, document that. But there's more. She's claiming you've been taking photos of her wearing allegedly stolen items to build evidence against her. Says it's creating a hostile work environment where she's afraid to come to work. The irony was staggering. She's afraid to come to work? She's been stealing from me for 8 months. I believe you, but she's playing this smart. She's framing your legitimate complaints as harassment and stalking. And the timing with your promotion makes it look vindictive. I stared out my new office window at the parking lot. So what happens now? She gets to keep my clothes and transfer departments while I get investigated for harassment? Not necessarily. I talked to legal this morning. We're going to handle this carefully. Can you be here at 2 p.m. today? We're going to document everything, your original complaint, the timeline, witness statements about the sweater. Witness statements? Maria from accounting called me an hour ago. Apparently, Jessica's thrift store find story bothered her because she distinctly remembered you wearing that exact sweater to the Christmas party. She's willing to make a formal statement. For the first time since Friday, I felt a spark of hope. Really? Really? And Sarah? Don't contact Jessica directly. Don't drive by her house, don't leave any notes, don't give her ammunition. Let HR handle this properly. After David hung up, I sat in my new office trying to process everything. Jessica hadn't just stolen my belongings, she'd stolen my narrative. But maybe, just maybe, the truth would finally come out. My computer chimed with a new email. The sender made my blood run cold, Jessica Martinelli. Subject line, resignation letter. I clicked on Jessica's email with trembling fingers, my mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Was she resigning to avoid investigation? Getting ahead of the story somehow? But what I found was so much worse than I'd imagined. Dear Mr. Chen and management. It is with great regret that I must tender my resignation, effective immediately. The hostile work environment created by Sarah Mitchell has become unbearable. Despite my attempts to handle this situation professionally, the harassment has escalated to criminal behavior including stalking and property damage. I have documentation of Ms. Mitchell's obsessive behavior, including her frequent photographing of my personal belongings and workspace. Her recent promotion to department manager has only emboldened her harassment, as evidenced by the threatening note left on my vehicle this weekend. I am consulting with legal counsel regarding potential restraining order proceedings. I will be collecting my remaining personal belongings this afternoon at 3 p.m. with a witness present. Respectfully, Jessica Martinelli. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my coffee mug. She wasn't just deflecting, she was scorching the earth. Criminal behavior. Legal counsel. Restraining order. These weren't words you threw around lightly in corporate emails that would be forwarded to legal and probably copied to senior management. I immediately called David. Did you see her resignation email? Unfortunately, yes. And Sarah, there's something else. Building security called 20 minutes ago. Jessica was here at 6:45 this morning with her boyfriend, cleaning out her cubicle. They have it on camera. Wait, what? She called in sick but she was actually here? Exactly. And get this, the cameras show her removing several items from her desk drawer. The security guard said it looked like clothing and accessories. She might have been disposing of evidence. A wild surge of hope shot through me. Evidence of my stolen belongings? Possibly. Security is pulling the full footage now. But here's the problem, her boyfriend is Marcus Webb from the IT department. He had legitimate building access, so they didn't question what they were removing. Marcus Webb. I knew him vaguely, tall guy, worked on our network maintenance. David, if Marcus works in IT, he might have access to employee records. Personnel files, promotion announcements. Shit. You're right. That could explain how she knew about your promotion in advance. I heard David typing furiously. I'm calling IT security right now. If Marcus accessed your employment records without authorization, that's a fireable offense. But what about the stuff they took? If she disposed of my belongings, how do I prove anything now? Actually, that might work in our favor. Security footage of her removing clothing from her workspace, combined with Maria's witness statement about the sweater, builds our timeline. Plus, her sudden resignation the day you become her boss? That doesn't look innocent. I was pacing my office now, nervous energy coursing through me. She said she's coming back at 3 p.m. to collect remaining belongings. With a witness. Yeah, about that. I'm going to be that witness, along with building security. If there are any of your items still in her workspace, we'll document them. Can you make a detailed list of everything that was stolen? Include dates when you noticed items missing, approximate values, where you purchased them. I already have one. I've been tracking everything since February. I pulled out my phone and opened the notes app I've been obsessively updating. David, it's 23 items total. $847 in value. Good. Email that to me immediately. And Sarah? I talked to legal again this morning. Jessica's nuclear option might have backfired. By putting everything in writing and making criminal accusations, she's forced us to treat this as a serious internal investigation. If we can prove she's been stealing and then lying about it, the restraining order threat becomes witness intimidation. My computer chimed with another email. This one from Marcus Webb and IT, sent to my personal company account. Subject line, sorry. David, Marcus just emailed me. Don't open it yet. I'm coming to your office. This is evidence now. 5 minutes later, David arrived with a laptop and a very serious expression. Legal wants us to open this together and screenshot everything immediately. We opened Marcus's email. Sarah, Jessica made me look up your promotion info last week. I didn't know why she wanted it. She told me you'd been harassing her and she needed to know if you were getting authority over her. I thought I was helping someone avoid a bad situation. I didn't know about the stolen stuff until this morning when she made me help her throw away a bunch of clothes and jewelry. I feel sick about this. I'm prepared to make a statement to HR. I'm sorry. David and I stared at the screen in silence. Then he started laughing, not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when something is so absurd you can't process it any other way. Sarah, she just handed us everything. Premeditated records tampering, disposal of evidence, and a confession from her accomplice. Jessica's 3 p.m. collection appointment was going to be very interesting. At 2:45 p.m., I positioned myself in the conference room adjacent to the main office floor, watching through the glass partition as David and 2 security guards waited by Jessica's former cubicle. Legal had insisted I stay out of direct sight to avoid any claims of intimidation, but I wasn't missing this. Jessica arrived precisely at 3 p.m., and she wasn't alone. Besides Marcus, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, she'd brought an older woman in a sharp business suit, clearly the legal counsel she'd mentioned. The woman carried a briefcase and had that predatory alertness I associated with expensive attorneys. Ms. Martinelli, David's voice carried across the office. I wasn't expecting legal representation for a personal belongings collection. Given the criminal harassment my client has endured, we felt it was prudent, the attorney replied crisply. I'm Patricia Hoffman from Hoffman & Associates. We're here to collect my client's remaining personal property and document any additional evidence of stalking behavior. I watched Jessica survey her old workspace, her expression unreadable. She was wearing a black blazer I didn't recognize, probably actually hers, and had her hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked professional, composed, nothing like someone fleeing from criminal behavior. Before we proceed, David said, I need to inform you that this collection is being recorded for security purposes, and that we've received additional information regarding the circumstances of your resignation. Patricia Hoffman's head snapped up. What additional information? We have an email from Marcus Webb indicating that he improperly accessed confidential employee records at your client's request, and that he assisted in the disposal of items that may constitute evidence in an ongoing theft investigation. Marcus physically flinched at his name. Jessica's composure cracked for just a moment, a flash of something between anger and panic before her lawyer placed a restraining hand on her arm. My client categorically denies any wrongdoing, Hoffman said smoothly. Any items disposed of were her personal property, and she has receipts and documentation for all belongings in question. Excellent, David replied. We'd be happy to review that documentation. In fact, we insist on it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Through my notes app, I watched David pull out printed copies of my stolen items list, complete with photos I'd taken of myself wearing several pieces before they'd gone missing. The Christmas party photo showing me in the burgundy sweater was particularly damning. Jessica opened her mouth to speak, but her lawyer cut her off. My client won't be providing any documentation without a formal court order. This appears to be a fishing expedition designed to validate Ms. Mitchell's harassment campaign. Ms. Hoffman, David's voice took on a harder edge. Your client filed a complaint Friday claiming items were stolen from her car. She then resigned this morning citing criminal harassment. But we have security footage of her removing multiple items from her workspace at 6:45 a.m. while calling in sick, and a written confession from Mr. Webb regarding both unauthorized data access and evidence disposal. The color drained from Marcus's face. I never called it a confession. Marcus, Jessica hissed, speaking for the first time since arriving. No, Jess, I can't do this anymore. Marcus turned to David, his voice gaining strength. Everything I said in my email is true. She made me look up Sarah's promotion information, and this morning she had me help her throw away 2 garbage bags full of clothes, jewelry, and accessories. She said if anyone asked, they were old things she was donating, but... He swallowed hard. Some of those pieces still had dry cleaning tags with someone else's name on them. Patricia Hoffman's briefcase snapped shut with a sharp click. This meeting is over. My client won't be subjected to further harassment without proper legal procedures. But Jessica wasn't moving. She was staring at Marcus with pure betrayal, and I could see her calculating whether she could still salvage this situation. Where exactly did you dispose of these items, Mr. Webb? David asked gently. The dumpster behind Jessica's apartment complex. This morning around 7:30. David smiled grimly and pulled out his phone. I'll need that address. The address Marcus gave made my stomach lurch. I knew exactly where Jessica lived because I'd driven past her apartment complex twice over the summer, trying to work up the courage to confront her about my missing earrings. Now I felt sick thinking about how that would look if anyone found out. Patricia Hoffman was practically dragging Jessica toward the elevator when David's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted to something almost predatory. Ms. Martinelli, I'm afraid you'll need to wait a moment. That was our security company. They're currently retrieving items from the dumpster Mr. Webb specified. Jessica stopped dead in her tracks. You can't do that. That's private property. Actually, David said, consulting his phone again, your apartment complex uses the same waste management company as our building. When we explained the situation and showed them the documentation, they were very cooperative. Amazing how helpful people become when you mention potential criminal charges. I watched through the glass as Patricia Hoffman's professional composure finally cracked. She was clearly realizing that her client had lied to her, and expensive attorneys don't like being made to look foolish. Jessica, her lawyer's voice was ice cold, we need to talk privately. Now. But Jessica seemed frozen, staring at Marcus like she couldn't believe her partner in crime had betrayed her. You said you'd handle this. You said you'd make it go away. I said I'd help you clean out your stuff, Marcus shot back. I didn't sign up to be an accessory to whatever this is. Do you have any idea what unauthorized data access could do to my career? David's phone rang again. David Chin. Yes. How many bags? Are you serious? Okay, document everything and bring it all here. He hung up and turned to Jessica with an expression I'd never seen on his usually diplomatic face. 2 large garbage bags of women's clothing, shoes, jewelry, and accessories. Some items still have the original price tags attached. Others have dry cleaning receipts with S. Mitchell written on them. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding as I watched Jessica's entire fabricated reality crumble in real time. Among the items recovered, David continued, reading from his phone, 1 burgundy cable knit cashmere sweater, Brooks Brothers label, size medium. 1 pair of pearl stud earrings, Mikimoto. 1 brown leather handbag, Coach signature collection. Should I continue? Patricia Hoffman was already packing her briefcase. My representation of Ms. Martinelli is terminated effective immediately. Jessica, don't say another word. Find new counsel. She strode toward the elevator without looking back, leaving Jessica standing there like she'd been slapped. The woman who'd confidently waltzed around in my stolen clothes for 8 months suddenly looked very small and very young. I can explain, Jessica started, but David held up his hand. Ms. Martinelli, you're no longer an employee here, but I strongly suggest you contact a criminal defense attorney. The company will be filing a police report for theft, and the district attorney's office will decide whether to pursue charges. Criminal charges? Jessica's voice cracked. It was just. I didn't think. You didn't think stealing nearly $900 worth of personal property was criminal? David's disbelief was evident. You didn't think filing false harassment reports was criminal? What exactly did you think this was? I wanted to burst through that conference room door and finally confront her face to face, but legal had been very clear about maintaining proper procedures. This was no longer about my personal satisfaction, this was about building a bulletproof case. Jessica's phone started buzzing insistently. She glanced at it and her remaining color disappeared. That'll be the police, David said matter-of-factly. We called them 20 minutes ago. The police arrived 15 minutes later, 2 officers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else than dealing with workplace drama. Officer Martinez, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, took the lead while her younger partner, Officer Kim, started photographing the recovered items that security had laid out on the conference table. I watched from my hiding spot as Jessica tried to explain herself, her voice getting higher and more desperate with each word. Those items were gifts. My aunt gave me that sweater for Christmas. The earrings were from my grandmother. I have receipts somewhere. Ma'am, Officer Martinez interrupted, holding up a dry cleaning receipt. This tag has someone else's name on it. Sarah Mitchell. And the date stamp shows it was cleaned 3 weeks ago. That's a coincidence. Lots of people have similar names. Officer Kim looked up from photographing my recovered Coach purse. Ms. Martinelli, we also found this in one of the bags. He held up my driver's license. My actual driver's license that I'd been frantically searching for since last month, thinking I'd dropped it somewhere. The silence was deafening. Even I hadn't realized she'd stolen my ID. David stepped forward with his documentation. Officers, we have security footage of Ms. Martinelli in the victim's cubicle area on multiple occasions, witness statements confirming she wore these specific items to work, and her accomplice's written confession regarding the disposal of evidence. Accomplice? Officer Martinez turned to Marcus, who looked like he might throw up. Sir, what's your involvement here? Marcus swallowed hard. I helped her access employee records illegally. And this morning I helped her throw away these bags. But I swear I didn't know it was stolen stuff until she made me help her get rid of it. She made you? Officer Kim raised an eyebrow. How exactly did she make you commit computer crimes and dispose of evidence? She's my girlfriend, Marcus whispered, and suddenly everything clicked into place for me. Not just his girlfriend, they lived together. That's how she'd known exactly when to escalate her false harassment claims. That's how she'd orchestrated this whole preemptive strike. Was your girlfriend, Jessica snapped. Thanks for completely destroying my life, Marcus. I destroyed your life? Marcus's voice cracked. Jess, you had me stealing personnel files. You had me throwing away garbage bags full of someone else's belongings. I could lose my job, my security clearance, everything. Officer Martinez was taking notes rapidly. Mr. Webb, you're saying you accessed confidential employee records without authorization at Ms. Martinelli's request? Yes, ma'am. Last Tuesday. She said she needed to know if Sarah Mitchell was getting promoted because Sarah had been harassing her. I thought I was helping her prepare for a hostile supervisor situation. And the disposal of items this morning? She woke me up at 6 a.m. saying we had to get rid of some things immediately. Said they were evidence that could be misinterpreted. I was half asleep and just. I trusted her. Jessica was shaking her head frantically. He's lying. He's trying to save himself by blaming everything on me. Those were my clothes, my jewelry. I bought everything myself. Officer Kim held up a small jewelry box I recognized immediately, my grandmother's antique brooch that I'd kept in my desk drawer for special occasions. Ma'am, this piece has an inscription on the back. To Sarah, love Grandma Rose, Christmas 1998. Are you claiming your name is also Sarah and you also had a Grandma Rose? The fight went out of Jessica like air from a punctured balloon. She slumped into the nearest chair, finally understanding that her web of lies had completely unraveled. Ms. Martinelli, Officer Martinez said formally, you're under arrest for theft in the third degree and filing false police reports. You have the right to remain silent. As they read Jessica her rights, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. 8 months of feeling powerless, of doubting my own memory, of hiding my belongings like a paranoid person, it was finally over. But watching her get handcuffed, I realized this victory felt different than I'd imagined. David's phone buzzed again as the officers finished processing Jessica. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. Sarah, I need you in here. Now. I left my hiding spot in the conference room, finally face to face with Jessica for the first time since this whole nightmare began. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes, mascara streaked down her cheeks, still wearing the handcuffs. You, she whispered, and there was so much venom in that one word that Officer Martinez stepped closer. You planned this whole thing. You got promoted just to destroy me. I planned this? The absurdity hit me like a physical blow. Jessica, you stole from me for 8 months. You wore my clothes to work in front of our colleagues. You filed false harassment reports to cover your tracks. You were obsessed with me, she screamed, struggling against the handcuffs. Taking pictures, watching everything I wore, keeping lists like some kind of stalker. David held up his hand before I could respond. Sarah, we have a bigger problem. I just got a call from Patricia Hoffman's office. Before she dropped Jessica as a client, she'd already filed preliminary paperwork for a restraining order. It's scheduled for an emergency hearing tomorrow morning. My stomach dropped. But she just got arrested for stealing my stuff. Doesn't matter. The restraining order petition was filed Friday afternoon, before we had any of this evidence. And here's the kicker, it includes a clause requesting that you be suspended from your new position pending investigation of the harassment claims. Officer Kim looked up from his paperwork. Ma'am, civil and criminal proceedings are separate. Her arrest tonight doesn't automatically invalidate civil claims filed earlier. Jessica's laugh was bitter and sharp. You think this is over? My lawyer already submitted statements from 3 people who saw you photographing me at work. That's harassment documentation right there. What 3 people? I demanded. Angela from reception, Tom from facilities, and Lisa from accounting. They all noticed you taking pictures of me wearing various outfits over the past few months. David pulled out his phone and started scrolling rapidly. Sarah, please tell me you weren't actually photographing her at work. My face burned with embarrassment. I took a few pictures. But only because I needed proof of what she was wearing. The HR complaint in February went nowhere because I didn't have documentation. How many pictures? David's voice was carefully controlled. Maybe a dozen over 6 months? Just quick shots on my phone when she wore something obvious, like the pearl earrings or that distinctive sweater. Officer Martinez finished her notes and looked up. Ma'am, I have to ask, did you follow Ms. Martinelli outside of work or attempt to contact her at home? No. Absolutely not. But even as I said it, I remembered those 2 drives past her apartment complex. Wait, I did drive by her building twice over the summer. But I never got out of my car, never tried to contact her. You followed me home? Jessica's voice rose to a shriek. You see? She's been stalking me for months. I wasn't following you. I was trying to work up the courage to confront you about my missing earrings. David closed his eyes briefly. Sarah, please tell me you didn't leave that note on her windshield. I never left any note. I was at my neighbor's barbecue Saturday night until 11 p.m. Mrs. Chin next door was celebrating her retirement. There were 20 people there. Officer Kim consulted his notes. The note was reportedly discovered Sunday morning around 8 a.m. Your alibi only covers Saturday night. The room felt like it was spinning. I was home Sunday morning. Asleep. Alone. As soon as I said it, I realized how weak that sounded. Jessica leaned forward, her eyes gleaming despite the tears. She's been building a harassment case against me for months, and now that she has power over me, she's using her position to retaliate. This whole thing is a setup. That's insane, I protested. You literally just got arrested with garbage bags full of my stolen belongings. Allegedly stolen, Jessica shot back. Those items were gifts, thrift finds, things I bought myself. Just because you own similar pieces doesn't prove theft. Officer Martinez stood up, clearly tired of the drama. Ladies, you can sort this out in court. Ms. Martinelli, you're coming with us. The rest of you need to document everything for the DA's office. As they led Jessica away, she turned back one final time. This isn't over, Sarah. Tomorrow morning, we'll see who the real victim is here. The conference room fell silent after they left. David sank into a chair and rubbed his temples. Sarah, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anything else? Any other contact attempts, any other photos, anything that could be misconstrued as stalking behavior? I thought carefully about the past 8 months, my paranoia, my obsessive list-keeping, my drives past her apartment. David, I think I might be in serious trouble. The next morning arrived with all the warmth of a death sentence. I barely slept, replaying every interaction I'd had with Jessica, every photo I'd taken, every moment that could be twisted into evidence of harassment. My lawyer, Amanda Torres, met me at the courthouse at 8 a.m. looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Sarah, I'm going to be blunt, she said as we walked up the steps. The optics here are terrible. You got promoted to supervise someone you'd been documenting and photographing for months. To a judge who doesn't know the theft context, it looks like you used your new authority to retaliate. But she was literally arrested last night with my stolen belongings. Which happened after the restraining order petition was filed. Patricia Hoffman is good, she's going to argue that you orchestrated Jessica's arrest to discredit her harassment claims. We entered the courthouse to find Patricia Hoffman waiting outside courtroom 3B, looking perfectly composed despite having dropped Jessica as a client 18 hours earlier. She approached us with a predatory smile. Ms. Torres, I assume you're here for the Mitchell matter? I should inform you that my former client has retained new counsel. This is James Brennan from Brennan and Associates. A thin man in an expensive suit stepped forward, extending his hand. Ms. Torres. I understand your client has been using her corporate position to systematically harass my client. We'll be seeking not just the restraining order, but also a formal investigation by the State Labor Board. Amanda's jaw tightened. Mr. Brennan, your client was arrested last night for theft and filing false police reports. She was caught with nearly $900 worth of stolen property. Allegedly stolen property, Brennan corrected smoothly. Property that my client purchased legally and which Ms. Mitchell has now claimed ownership of as part of her harassment campaign. The timing of these criminal charges, coming immediately after my client filed harassment complaints, speaks to a pattern of retaliation. I watched this legal chess match unfold, feeling increasingly sick. Somehow, being the victim of theft for 8 months had transformed into being an abuser of corporate power. Furthermore, Brennan continued, we have witness statements from 3 employees documenting Ms. Mitchell's photographing of my client without consent over a 6-month period. We also have evidence that Ms. Mitchell drove past my client's residence on multiple occasions. Twice, I whispered to Amanda. It was only twice. Amanda shot me a warning look. Gentlemen, the criminal evidence speaks for itself. My client's belongings were recovered from Ms. Martinelli's possession, some of my client's names still on dry cleaning tags. Circumstantial at best, Brennan replied. Similar items, possibly planted evidence. The real issue here is Ms. Mitchell's escalating obsession with my client, culminating in using her new supervisory role to orchestrate false criminal charges. Before Amanda could respond, the courtroom doors opened. Mitchell versus Martinelli, the bailiff called out. As we filed into the courtroom, I caught sight of Jessica sitting in the front row. She'd clearly been coached, gone was yesterday's desperate, mascara-streaked appearance. She wore a conservative navy dress, minimal makeup, and had managed to look both professional and vulnerable. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Judge Catherine Rodriguez looked like she'd seen every variation of workplace drama imaginable. She reviewed the paperwork with practiced efficiency before looking up. This is a petition for an emergency restraining order based on allegations of workplace harassment and stalking. Mr. Brennan, present your case. Your Honor, my client Jessica Martinelli has been subjected to months of systematic harassment by Sarah Mitchell, culminating in Ms. Mitchell's recent promotion to a supervisory position over my client. The power dynamic makes this particularly egregious. Brennan laid out a timeline that made my blood run cold. Every photo I'd taken, every time I'd walked past Jessica's cubicle, every instance where I'd asked colleagues if they'd seen her wearing familiar items, it all sounded calculated and predatory when stripped of context. Ms. Mitchell created detailed documentation of my client's daily activities, including photographic surveillance and tracking of personal belongings. When my client attempted to address this harassment through proper channels, Ms. Mitchell used her new authority to fabricate criminal charges. Judge Rodriguez turned to Amanda. Ms. Torres, how does your client respond to these allegations? Amanda stood, and I held my breath, hoping she could somehow make this nightmare make sense. Amanda's voice was steady as she addressed the judge, but I could see her knuckles were white as she gripped her notes. Your Honor, the context Mr. Brennan has conveniently omitted is that Ms. Martinelli systematically stole nearly $900 worth of personal property from my client over 8 months. Last night, police recovered these items from Ms. Martinelli's possession, including my client's driver's license and items with dry cleaning tags bearing my client's name. Judge Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. The defendant was arrested? Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Martinelli was charged with theft in the 3rd degree and filing false police reports. The so-called documentation my client maintained was her attempting to gather evidence of ongoing theft after HR initially dismissed her complaints. Brennan immediately objected. Your Honor, these alleged criminal charges are clearly retaliatory. The timing is suspect, filed only after my client sought legal protection from harassment. Mr. Brennan, the judge said dryly, are you arguing that the police fabricated evidence? That stolen property with the plaintiff's name on it was somehow planted? I watched Jessica lean over to whisper frantically to her lawyer. Whatever she said made his confident expression falter slightly. Your Honor, we believe the evidence may have been misinterpreted. Similar items, perhaps coincidental name matches. Judge Rodriguez looked skeptical. Ms. Torres, I assume you have documentation of these recovered items? Amanda approached the bench with a folder full of photos from yesterday's evidence collection. Your Honor, this is my client's driver's license, found in Ms. Martinelli's possession. Here are dry cleaning receipts clearly showing S. Mitchell dated 3 weeks ago. This antique brooch has an inscription, to Sarah, love Grandma Rose, Christmas 1998. The judge studied the photo silently. When she looked up, her expression had shifted noticeably. Mr. Brennan, how does your client explain possessing someone else's driver's license? Jessica was crying now, but they weren't the composed, strategic tears from earlier. These looked panicked. She tugged at Brennan's sleeve, but he gently pushed her hand away. Your Honor, we'd need time to investigate these claims. The important issue today is protecting my client from further harassment. Actually, Mr. Brennan, the important issue is determining whether this petition has merit. Judge Rodriguez set down the photos. Ms. Torres, were there witnesses to this alleged theft? Yes, Your Honor. Maria Santos from the defendant's former workplace has provided a sworn statement that she saw Ms. Martinelli wearing my client's distinctive cashmere sweater, which Ms. Martinelli claimed was a thrift store find. Ms. Santos specifically remembered my client wearing the same sweater to the company Christmas party. I felt a surge of gratitude toward Maria, who I'd barely spoken to beyond polite hellos in the break room. She'd been paying attention when I thought no one had noticed. Additionally, Amanda continued, Marcus Webb, Ms. Martinelli's boyfriend, has provided written testimony admitting he helped dispose of the stolen items and illegally accessed my client's employment records at Ms. Martinelli's request. Judge Rodriguez turned to Jessica. Ms. Martinelli, you may respond to these allegations. Jessica stood shakily, clearly unprepared to speak for herself. Your Honor, those items were gifts from family. The pictures Sarah took of me were invasive and made me feel unsafe at work. She drove past my apartment building multiple times. Twice, I whispered to Amanda, who squeezed my arm in warning. Ms. Martinelli, the judge continued, how do you explain possessing Ms. Mitchell's driver's license? The courtroom fell silent. Jessica's mouth opened and closed soundlessly before she looked desperately at her lawyer. I don't remember. Maybe it fell out of her purse when she was in my workspace area. Judge Rodriguez's expression could have frozen water. You're suggesting Ms. Mitchell's driver's license accidentally fell into your personal belongings and you didn't notice? The lie was so transparent that even Brennan looked embarrassed. I realized this was the moment everything shifted. Jessica's carefully constructed victim narrative was crumbling under the weight of simple, verifiable facts. Judge Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, studying Jessica with the kind of look that had probably intimidated countless liars over the years. Ms. Martinelli, I'm going to ask you one more time. How did Ms. Mitchell's driver's license end up in your possession? Jessica's face was flushed red now, her careful composure completely gone. Maybe she dropped it and I picked it up meaning to return it. For an entire month? The judge's voice was sharp. You held onto someone's driver's license for a month without returning it? Brennan finally stood up. Your Honor, my client is clearly distressed. Perhaps we could. Sit down, Mr. Brennan. Judge Rodriguez's tone brooked no argument. Ms. Martinelli, I've been presiding over restraining order cases for 12 years. I've seen genuine victims of harassment and stalking. I've also seen manipulative individuals attempt to weaponize the legal system. Jessica started crying harder, but these tears weren't winning her any sympathy. The judge continued reviewing Amanda's evidence photos, occasionally glancing up at Jessica with increasing disapproval. Your Honor, Amanda interjected, there's one more piece of evidence we'd like to present. The handwritten note allegedly left on Ms. Martinelli's windshield. My stomach lurched. We still hadn't figured out who actually left that note, and it remained the one piece of evidence that could still destroy me. The note reads, "Give back what you stole," Amanda continued. While my client denies writing this note, we'd like to point out that whoever wrote it was factually correct. Ms. Martinelli had, in fact, stolen items that needed to be returned. Judge Rodriguez examined a photo of the note. The handwriting analysis? Incomplete, Your Honor, but my client has provided handwriting samples and has an alibi for the time period when the note was allegedly placed. Mrs. Chen's retirement party, I whispered to Amanda. 20 witnesses until 11 p.m. Your Honor, Brennan interjected desperately, even if someone else wrote that note, it demonstrates that Ms. Mitchell created such a hostile environment around my client that unknown third parties felt compelled to intimidate her. It was a creative argument, I had to give him credit. But Judge Rodriguez wasn't buying it. Mr. Brennan, that's quite a stretch. You're asking me to hold Ms. Mitchell responsible for the actions of unknown individuals who accurately identified your client as a thief? The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. The judge had essentially called Jessica a thief from the bench. Jessica shot to her feet. I'm not a thief. Those items were mine. Sarah has been obsessed with me for months, taking pictures, following me, and now she's using her new job to get revenge. Ms. Martinelli, Judge Rodriguez said coldly, you are in possession of someone else's driver's license, jewelry inscribed with another person's name, and clothing with dry cleaning tags bearing someone else's name. What would you call that behavior? It's a misunderstanding. The dry cleaning place makes mistakes with tags all the time. Amanda stood smoothly. Your Honor, if Ms. Martinelli truly believes these items belong to her, we'd be happy to provide receipts showing when and where my client purchased each piece. Store records, credit card statements, everything. The color drained from Jessica's face. Of course she couldn't provide purchase receipts for stolen items. Judge Rodriguez set down her pen with finality. I've heard enough. This petition for a restraining order is denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential perjury charges. Ms. Martinelli, you have attempted to use this court to continue harassing the actual victim of your criminal behavior. Jessica collapsed back into her chair as if she'd been physically struck. Brennan was frantically shuffling papers, clearly preparing to distance himself from this disaster. Your Honor, he began, my client was clearly. Your client, Mr. Brennan, has wasted this court's time with frivolous litigation while in possession of nearly $900 worth of stolen property. I suggest she focus on her upcoming criminal trial rather than pursuing additional legal fiction. As we left the courtroom, I felt lighter than I had in months. But Amanda's expression remained serious. Sarah, this isn't over yet. Jessica's desperate now, and desperate people do unpredictable things. Amanda's warning proved prophetic before we even reached the parking lot. My phone was buzzing incessantly with notifications, text messages, missed calls, and social media alerts that made my stomach clench with dread. Sarah, don't look at those yet, Amanda warned, but I was already scrolling through the notifications. Jessica had been busy during our court hearing. Facebook posts, Instagram stories, LinkedIn updates, she'd launched a full social media assault painting herself as the victim of corporate retaliation. The posts were carefully crafted, never mentioning the theft charges but focusing entirely on workplace harassment and abuse of power by management. Check this out, I showed Amanda a Facebook post that already had 37 comments and 15 shares. Sometimes standing up to workplace bullies means they use their new authority to destroy your life. Fighting false criminal charges filed by my former supervisor who couldn't handle being told no, the system protects those with power. Hashtag workplace harassment, hashtag corporate abuse, hashtag justice for Jessica. The comments were even worse. People I'd never heard of expressing outrage about corporate bullying, sharing their own stories about vindictive bosses, calling for boycotts of my company. Someone had even started a GoFundMe for Jessica's legal defense against corporate persecution. She's building a public narrative to contaminate any potential jury pool, Amanda observed grimly. And look at this, she's not just targeting you anymore. Amanda showed me a LinkedIn post that made my blood run cold. Shout out to David Chin in HR at Brennan Industries for enabling workplace harassment and retaliating against victims who speak up. Some professionals care more about protecting management than employee safety. Hashtag HR fail, hashtag toxic workplace. My phone rang immediately, David's number. Sarah, we have a problem. Jessica's social media campaign is going viral in the HR professional groups. I've gotten 12 calls in the past hour from industry contacts asking what the hell is happening here. David, you know the truth. The court threw out her restraining order petition. She was caught with my stolen belongings. I know that, but she's not mentioning the theft charges in her posts. To anyone reading this stuff, it looks like we fabricated criminal charges to silence a harassment victim. My reputation is getting destroyed in real time. I could hear the strain in David's voice. HR directors lived and died by their professional reputations. Jessica wasn't just attacking me anymore, she was targeting everyone who'd helped expose her lies. It gets worse, David continued. 3 reporters have called the company asking for statements about our harassment cover-up. Apparently someone sent Jessica's posts to a journalist who covers workplace discrimination cases. Amanda grabbed my arm. Sarah, we need to get ahead of this. Do you have any documentation of the timeline? Screenshots of her wearing your items, witnesses who remember specific incidents? I have the photos I took, but those make me look like a stalker. No, they make you look like someone building a legitimate case. There's a difference, especially now that we have the recovered stolen items to corroborate your story. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw Jessica's posts about you. Always knew something was off about that girl. She borrowed my stapler 6 months ago and never returned it. Angela from reception. Then another. Sarah, it's Tom from facilities. Jessica tried to get me to let her into your office last month when you were at lunch. Said she needed to drop off papers. I told her to wait till you got back and she got really angry. Thought you should know. More messages kept arriving, colleagues coming forward with their own Jessica stories now that the truth was out. Maria from accounting texted. She asked me to cover for her when she called in sick yesterday morning. Said she had food poisoning, but I saw her Instagram story from the coffee shop downtown at 9 a.m. Felt wrong but didn't know who to tell. This is actually good, Amanda said, reading over my shoulder. She's overplayed her hand. The social media campaign feels desperate, and now you have multiple witnesses coming forward with supporting evidence. But my relief was short-lived. Another notification popped up. Jessica had tagged me directly in a new post. When your workplace abuser has stolen your voice, sometimes social media is the only way to speak truth to power. Sarah Mitchell, David Chen, and Brennan Industries would rather destroy a victim than admit their mistakes. But I won't be silenced. Hashtag speak truth, hashtag workplace bully. The post included a photo, me leaving the courthouse this morning, looking stern and corporate next to Amanda. Somehow she'd made my relief at winning the restraining order hearing look like cold, calculating satisfaction. She's making this personal now, I told Amanda. She's not just attacking the company anymore, she's targeting me specifically. And that's going to backfire, Amanda replied confidently. The more desperate and vindictive she appears, the less credible her victim narrative becomes. Plus, we now have multiple witnesses contradicting her version of events. My phone rang again, this time it was Marcus Webb. I hesitated, then answered. Sarah, I'm so sorry, his voice was shaky. Jessica's been calling me nonstop since the hearing. She wants me to recant my statement, say you pressured me into lying about the data access. Marcus, you told the truth. Don't let her manipulate you again. I know, but she's saying if I don't help her, she'll claim I was the real mastermind behind everything. That I manipulated her into taking your stuff because I was obsessed with you. The accusation was so absurd it was almost laughable, but I realized Jessica was capable of anything now. Marcus, whatever she's threatening, don't give in. The truth is going to come out. She's already posted something on Facebook claiming I'm an unstable ex-boyfriend who coerced her into criminal activity. Sarah, I could lose my security clearance over this. My whole career. Jessica wasn't just desperate, she was systematically destroying everyone who'd helped expose her lies. I stared at my phone in disbelief as Marcus's words sank in. Jessica wasn't just fighting back, she was scorching the earth, trying to take down everyone who had dared to tell the truth about her. Marcus, screenshot everything she's posting about you, I said quickly. Amanda, can we use her social media posts against her? Absolutely. Every post she makes contradicting her court testimony or threatening witnesses becomes evidence of witness intimidation and potential obstruction of justice. Amanda was already taking notes. The more she posts, the deeper hole she digs. But my temporary relief evaporated when I saw my next notification. Jessica had posted a new photo, my grandmother's antique brooch, the one with the inscription that had been so damning in court. The caption made my blood freeze. Even family heirlooms aren't safe from false accusations. This belonged to my great-grandmother Rosa, but my abuser claims it's hers. They'll twist anything to support their narrative. Hashtag family history, hashtag false accusations. She's claiming my grandmother's brooch belonged to her great-grandmother? I showed Amanda the post. The inscription literally says, to Sarah, love Grandma Rose, Christmas 1998. How is she explaining that? Amanda frowned, studying the post. She's betting that most people won't zoom in to read the inscription. They'll just see the emotional story about family heirlooms being stolen by vindictive bosses. My phone buzzed with another call, this time from my actual grandmother. My heart sank as I realized the implications. Grandma Rose? Sarah, honey, someone sent me a Facebook post claiming some girl inherited my mother's brooch? The one I gave you for Christmas in 1998. Her voice was confused and hurt. Did you lose it? Why didn't you tell me? Grandma, someone stole it from my office. We just got it back yesterday. The person who took it is now claiming it belonged to her family. But that's impossible. I had the receipt from when I bought it, and photos of you opening it Christmas morning. Your mother took dozens of pictures that day. A light bulb went off. Grandma, can you send me those photos? And the receipt? Of course, dear. But who would steal jewelry and then lie about it belonging to their family? That's just sick. 20 minutes later, my phone pinged with a text from Grandma Rose containing 5 photos, me at age 12, grinning while opening a small jewelry box, the brooch clearly visible, my grandmother fastening it to my Christmas dress, and a close-up of the inscription. The timestamp on the photos was December 25, 1998, and she'd even included a photo of the original receipt from Morrison's jewelry. Jessica's about to have a very bad day, Amanda said, reviewing the photos. Post these as a response to her claim. Let her explain how her great-grandmother Rosa gave you a brooch in 1998. But before I could respond, my phone rang again. David, and he sounded frantic. Sarah, we have a bigger problem. Jessica's social media campaign caught the attention of Channel 7 News. They want to do a story about corporate retaliation against harassment victims. The reporter, Linda Walsh, is already in our parking lot asking employees for interviews. Through Amanda's car window, I could see we were only 3 blocks from my office building. David, what are people saying? Most employees are staying quiet, but Jessica showed up 20 minutes ago with that reporter. She's in the parking lot right now, crying on camera about being criminally prosecuted for speaking truth to power. She showed up at our workplace? Isn't that trespassing? She resigned and was arrested there yesterday. Technically, she's on public property, the sidewalk and parking lot. And her lawyer is with her, so they're being careful about boundaries. Amanda was already turning the car around. We're going there now. Sarah, do not speak to any reporters without me present. But we're going to end this circus today. How? By telling the truth. Jessica's been controlling the narrative because she got there first. Time to present the actual evidence, the recovered stolen items, the witness statements, the timeline of her lies. Amanda's voice was grimly determined. She wants to play this in the media? Fine. Let's see how her victim story holds up when we show the court documents and police reports. As we drove toward my office, I could see the Channel 7 News van in the parking lot, Jessica standing in front of the camera in the same navy dress she'd worn to court, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Even from a distance, she looked like the perfect picture of a wronged employee. She's good at this, I admitted reluctantly. She's good at manipulation, Amanda corrected. There's a difference. And manipulators always overreach eventually. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom in facilities. FYI, Jessica tried to get the reporter to go inside the building. I told them they needed permission and they backed off, but they've been asking employees about you specifically. Most people are saying no comment. Then another from Maria. The reporter asked me about Jessica's thrift store finds. I told her I remembered you wearing that sweater to the Christmas party months before Jessica claimed she bought it. She seemed very interested in that timeline. Maybe Amanda was right. Maybe the truth would actually win out. But as we pulled into the parking lot and I saw Jessica pointing directly at my car while speaking to the camera, I realized this war was far from over. The reporter, Linda Walsh, was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who looked like she'd covered every corporate scandal in the city. As Amanda and I approached, I could hear Jessica's voice carrying across the parking lot. And then Sarah used her new promotion to orchestrate my arrest. She planted evidence, manipulated witnesses, turned my own boyfriend against me. All because I tried to report her harassment through proper channels. Linda Walsh spotted us approaching and her eyes lit up with the predatory gleam of a journalist who just found the other side of the story. Ms. Mitchell. Linda Walsh, Channel 7 News. Would you care to respond to Ms. Martinelli's allegations? Amanda stepped forward smoothly. Amanda Torres, Ms. Mitchell's attorney. We'd be happy to provide a statement, but first I think your viewers deserve to see the actual evidence. She pulled out her phone and showed Linda the photos of the recovered items spread across the police evidence table. These are Ms. Mitchell's belongings, recovered yesterday from Ms. Martinelli's possession. Notice the dry cleaning tags with S. Mitchell written on them, and this driver's license. Jessica immediately interjected, those are my belongings. She's lying to cover up her harassment campaign. Ms. Martinelli, Amanda said calmly, turning to address her directly, how do you explain possessing Ms. Mitchell's driver's license? The one with her photo and name on it? For the first time since we'd arrived, Jessica looked genuinely flustered. The camera was still rolling, capturing her struggle to come up with an explanation that didn't sound completely insane. That must have fallen out of her purse when she was going through my workspace, Jessica stammered. Linda Walsh raised an eyebrow. Ms. Martinelli, are you saying you kept someone else's driver's license for over a month without returning it? I didn't know I had it. I never looked through the items carefully. Amanda pulled up another photo on her phone. This is an antique brooch inscribed, to Sarah, love Grandma Rose, Christmas 1998. Ms. Martinelli claimed on social media an hour ago that this belonged to her great-grandmother Rosa. I watched Jessica's face go through a series of expressions as she realized she'd been caught in another lie. The camera captured every moment of her internal panic. That's a different brooch. Similar inscription, but different piece, she said weakly. Linda Walsh was clearly experienced enough to recognize a collapsing story when she saw one. Ms. Martinelli, the court records show that Judge Rodriguez denied your restraining order petition this morning and referred the case to the DA for potential perjury charges. How do you respond to that? The judge was biased. She didn't understand the full context of Sarah's harassment pattern. What harassment pattern? Linda pressed. Can you provide specific examples? Jessica looked desperately at her lawyer, but Brennan was conspicuously silent, clearly recognizing that his client was destroying herself on live television. She took pictures of me without consent. She followed me home. She kept obsessive lists about my personal belongings. Ms. Mitchell, Linda turned to me, how do you respond to those accusations? Amanda squeezed my arm in warning, but I was tired of staying silent. Linda, I documented what Jessica was wearing because she was systematically stealing my clothes and wearing them to work. When your coworker shows up in your $180 cashmere sweater claiming it's a thrift store find, you start keeping records. And the photos? I took maybe 12 photos over 6 months, always in the workplace, always of items I recognized as mine. I needed proof because HR initially dismissed my complaints. Jessica's voice rose to near hysteria. She's lying. She's been obsessed with me for months. Ask anyone. But as if on cue, Maria from accounting appeared at the edge of our group. Excuse me, she said quietly to Linda Walsh. I heard you were asking about timeline questions? I specifically remember Sarah wearing that burgundy sweater to our Christmas party in December. Jessica didn't start wearing it until March, claiming she'd found it at a thrift store. The expression on Jessica's face as her final narrative thread unraveled was something I'd never forget. The news story aired that evening at 6 p.m., and by 8 p.m., Jessica's social media campaign had completely backfired. The video of her scrambling to explain why she possessed my driver's license went viral on Twitter, with the hashtag Jessica the Thief trending locally. But the real vindication came Tuesday morning when I walked into my corner office to find a handwritten note on my desk. Not a threatening one this time, this was from Angela at reception. Sarah, I owe you an apology. I saw Jessica going through your cubicle back in January when you were at lunch. I thought she was just borrowing office supplies, but now I realize she was stealing your personal stuff. I should have said something sooner. By Wednesday, the district attorney's office had formally charged Jessica with grand theft, possession of stolen property, filing false police reports, and perjury. Marcus received immunity in exchange for his continued cooperation and testimony about the data breach. The company-wide email David sent that Thursday was poetry in corporate speak. We are pleased to announce that the recent personnel matter involving false harassment allegations has been resolved. Brennan Industries takes all workplace concerns seriously, but we also have zero tolerance for employees who abuse our HR processes or engage in theft. We stand behind our promoted employees and their authority to maintain professional workplace standards. Friday afternoon brought the most satisfying moment of all. Jessica's attorney, James Brennan, called Amanda with a plea bargain offer. Jessica would plead guilty to the theft charges in exchange for 2 years probation and full restitution. Most importantly, she would sign a formal apology letter acknowledging that her harassment claims were false and that she had stolen my belongings. She wants to avoid jail time, Amanda explained. The DA is willing to accept the plea because the evidence is overwhelming, and frankly, the case is getting expensive with all her social media dramatics. What about the perjury charges? Dropped as part of the plea. She'll also be required to delete all social media posts related to you and the company, and she's banned from making any future public statements about the case. The apology letter arrived the following Monday, written on legal letterhead and notarized. I, Jessica Martinelli, formally acknowledge that I unlawfully took personal belongings belonging to Sarah Mitchell between August 2022 and April 2023, including clothing, jewelry, accessories, and identification. I further acknowledge that my claims of harassment and stalking against Ms. Mitchell were false and were made in an attempt to avoid consequences for my criminal behavior. I sincerely apologize to Ms. Mitchell for the theft of her property and for making false accusations that damaged her reputation. I also apologize to Brennan Industries and David Chen for wasting company resources and making false claims about their HR processes. I framed it and hung it next to my college diploma in my corner office. 6 months later, I was settling into my role as department manager when Maria knocked on my office door. Sarah? There's someone here to see you. She looked uncomfortable. It's Jessica. My stomach dropped, but when I saw Jessica in our lobby, she looked nothing like the manipulative person who'd terrorized me for 8 months. She was thinner, tired-looking, wearing jeans, and a plain sweater that was obviously her own. I know I'm not supposed to be here, she said quietly. But I wanted to tell you in person that I'm sorry. Really sorry. I was in therapy and my counselor said I needed to make genuine amends. Okay, I said carefully. I was jealous of you. Your clothes, your promotion, how put together you always seemed. It started with borrowing your stapler and just escalated. I told myself you wouldn't miss small things, then bigger things. When you started documenting what I was wearing, I panicked and tried to make you the bad guy. She swallowed hard. I nearly destroyed both our lives because I was too proud to just buy my own nice clothes. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I'd fantasized about for months. Just a broken person finally telling the truth. Thank you for saying that, I replied. I hope therapy helps. She nodded and left. I never saw Jessica Martinelli again. But every morning when I unlock my corner office and see my belongings exactly where I left them, I remember that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming too successful to steal from.